Today we're going to be listening to a late piece of Gerard Grisey for soprano and 50 musicians, and I'm going to call it a chamber orchestra, although this one's a bit more debatable than everything else in our chamber orchestra series. Yeah, the title is 4 Songs to Cross the Threshold, and the 4 songs are separated by instrumental movements, so it's 8 movements total. Yeah, so the instrumentation is 1-0-2-0, 2 saxophones, 1-0-0-2, harp, 3 percussionists, and then 1-0-0-1-1. So definitely the strangest instrument we've seen so far, the strangest ensemble we've seen so far, and probably the furthest thing from chamber orchestra, but it's got all the elements there. So the flute doubles on alto flute and piccolo. The first clarinetist is mainly on bass clarinet, but they also double on B flat. Second clarinetist is mainly on contrabass clarinet in B flat, doubling on bass clarinet in B flat. The first saxophonist is mostly a tenor saxophone, doubling on alto and soprano. The second saxophonist is mostly a baritone sax, doubling on tenor sax. The trumpet doubles on piccolo trumpet. The euphonium player doubles on tuba, and then there's just a tubist as in addition. And the percussion list is vibe, steel drums, congas, bongos, tam-tams, bass drum, vibra-slap for percussion 1. Marimba, xylophone, crotals, hand drum is percussion 2. Glockenspiel, chimes, gongs, tom-toms, tam-tams, bass drum, and vibra-slap is percussion 3. So there's 3 sizes of vibra-slap, 1 for each player, and a very large percussion list for each player. The arrangement is going to be actually the 2 saxes are around a cellist, the 2 tubists are positioned around the harp, and then the 2 clarinets are positioned around the bass. And then up front with the soprano are the high instruments, violin, flute, and trumpet. The 3 percussionists are at the back of the hall. Normally with a harp, when everything is set flat, the strings are at their lowest tension and at their longest, right? Or at their shortest. So with everything flat, they're supposed to tune the D flat up a quarter tone and the G flat down a quarter tone. So that's the scordatura for the harp. The cellist also has their C tuned to B flat. All other strings that normal. The first saxophonist, they should tune their tenor sax and their alto sax down a quarter tone. The second saxophonist, their tenor sax should be down a quarter tone. And he lists all of the ranges for the different instruments. There are a lot of gongs for percussion 2, it looks like, 15 in total, and they're pitched from low B flat all the way up to F sharp. Then there's some conventions of Grisey's writing, which we've gone over in previous videos. I will put their numbers in the subtitle there. And then we get into the piece proper. And you can see from this prelude that some of the instrumental movements are incredibly sustained, drone-like, ambient, but the piece itself can get quite active, and the arrangement is the front group, the far, like the group to the far left of the conductor, the group in front of the conductor to the back, and then, or actually, then it's the group to the right, and then it's the group to the back. So, definitely an interesting way of dividing the ensemble. It's like these spatialized groups, and every group has something in common. They all have either a percussionist or the soprano as a like faculty of timbral sounds, and they all have a string player, and then in the case of one of them it's a plucked string player, but a string player nonetheless, and then two winds. Okay, that's all I got for this one. Again, if you want to learn more about Grisey, I talk about him a lot more in our first episode on him, and he is a, needless to say, a spectral composer, probably the most famous spectral composer, and this is a pretty late work of his. Yeah, it was his last completed work, so that's something interesting about it as well. Written in 1998, the same year that he died an untimely death at the age of 52. So, yeah. I'm excited, just based on the performance notes here and the interesting instrumentation. I'm very intrigued to how this will sound. Okay, so I ended up really loving this piece, and it was a really fun listen. It is not one that I was familiar with before today, but I really like Grisey, so I can't believe I haven't checked this one out sooner. It's incredibly quiet most of the way through, and every movement has a different sort of like compositional texture and idea, ranging from incredibly sparse, like the second movement, which I thought was really cool, just like how sparse it was. It has a really prominent like harp part, and then the fourth one is the most complicated in sections. The first one's pretty complicated too. A lot of blending between different families of instruments, which I found really interesting. A lot of interesting use of unisons, and just a lot of mixed orchestrations, which I wasn't expecting. I just associate a lot of Grisey's music with like loud and colorful orchestration, where you really hear the different instruments, and here it was very hypnotizing, just trying to like distinguish between the different sounds. The saxophones blended incredibly well with low clarinets and the conical brass. I thought it was really cool, and I like how the first two movements really sparingly use the front ensemble. If I can show you what I mean here. So some of the movements are mostly composed of the back ensemble, and the four people at the front act like soloists. And then there's other movements where, like the fourth movement, for example, where this group acts like a fourth group and really extends the range of the ensemble upward, because there's a lot of low instruments back here. The percussion had a super interesting role. Like they were in charge of these interludes, which were essentially just like subtle changes in like colored noise from sustaining percussion instruments that were unpitched. And there was a really interesting moment where they were really playing together as a unit, and I just felt like the use of percussion was really cool, and you could probably write a whole essay on just the percussion writing. And I think that if you're a percussionist, you should really check this score out, because it's really cool. Same thing if you're a tubist or a saxophonist, because it's a really unique use of those instruments in this kind of ensemble. So yeah, this was a bit of a guilty pleasure. I kind of just wanted to talk about it and get to know it. So thank you for letting me include it in chamber orchestra. Even though it's not really a chamber orchestra piece, I think it's a nice addition because, as you can expect, we will get to another chamber orchestra piece by Grisey later, which is his most famous work. And I think, well, I was thinking going into this that, I could like compare the two, but they're really completely different pieces at completely different ends of the composer's career. This is a very unique thing, and I think there are some other late Grisey pieces like this, like his, I'm blanking on titles here, but he has a solo contrabass clarinet piece, which also exists as a version for bass sax. That thing, and he has a piece for like bass drum, and he has a percussion sextet. Those pieces kind of remind me of this one, but this is a much more like large-scale project, and it's really like fleshed out and orchestral in a way. So yeah, without going on and on too much about this, I think it's a really cool piece, and hopefully you listened along with me today. And yeah, it's also a very cool use of the voice. I don't know of a lot of other pieces that have so many long sustained notes in the soprano over the course of such a long duration, but this was a great example of giving the singer space to breathe and like using the lower end of their register and saving the high register, and it was very conservative writing in that respect, and kind of like there was so much instrumental stuff that if you're a fan of like prog rock or progressive metal, this is like the same kind of thing. Really low, lots of room for the singer, and lots of instrumental stuff, lots of percussion. So yeah.